There comes a point in life when begging for respect becomes more painful than being disrespected. You may not call it begging. You may call it explaining yourself one more time. You may call it trying to keep the family together. You may call it being patient, understanding, forgiving, or giving them another chance. But deep down, you know what it feels like. You know the exhaustion of trying to convince people who have known you for decades that your feelings still matter. You know the humiliation of speaking carefully, choosing your words, lowering your voice, and hoping that this time your own family will finally understand that you are not asking for worship. You are asking for basic consideration. After 60, this pain cuts differently. When you were younger, you could tell yourself that people would mature. You could believe that one day your children would understand your sacrifices. Your relatives would recognize your loyalty, and the people closest to you would finally see how much you had carried. You imagined that age would bring a certain dignity. You thought the years you gave, the bills you paid, the meals you cooked, the emergencies you answered, and the disappointments you swallowed would eventually speak for themselves. But sometimes they do not. Sometimes the child you raised answers your call with impatience. Sometimes they rush you off the phone as though your voice is an interruption. Sometimes they speak to you with a sharpness they would never use with a stranger, a coworker, or someone they are trying to impress. They may cancel plans at the last minute and expect you to understand. They may visit only when they need help, money, childcare, advice, or a place to stay. Then, when you need 10 quiet minutes of their attention, they suddenly become too busy. At family gatherings, you may notice that people talk around you instead of with you. They make decisions without asking what you think. They explain things to you as though age has erased your intelligence. They joke about you being old-fashioned, sensitive, forgetful, or difficult. You smile because you do not want to ruin the mood. You let the comment pass because everyone is having a good time. Later, when the house is quiet, the words come back. That is often the cruelest part. The disrespect happens in seconds, but you carry it for days. You replay the conversation while washing dishes. You think about it in bed. You wonder whether you should have said something. Then you wonder whether speaking up would have made things worse. You rehearse the perfect response after the moment is gone. You ask yourself why the people you love seem to offer more patience to strangers than they offer to you. And then you begin to bargain with yourself. Maybe I expect too much. Maybe they are stressed. Maybe I should not take it personally. Maybe this is simply how families are. Maybe if I stay quiet, they will appreciate me later. Maybe if I keep helping, they will remember what I mean to them. This is how begging for respect often begins. Not with pleading on your knees, but with slowly abandoning your own standards in exchange for small moments of peace. You accept behavior that wounds you because you are afraid that setting a boundary will push people farther away. You tolerate dismissive words because the silence after conflict feels unbearable. You keep giving because some part of you hopes your generosity will soften their hearts. But respect that must be purchased with endless sacrifice is not respect. It is dependence disguised as devotion. Marcus Aurelius understood something about human nature that remains painful and useful today. He understood that you cannot control whether another person behaves wisely, gratefully, or fairly. You can influence them. You can speak honestly. You can model dignity. But you cannot reach inside another human being and force them to value what they have chosen to overlook. This truth is especially difficult when the person is family. It is easier to accept coldness from a stranger because you do not expect a stranger to know your heart. But your family knows the years behind your face. They know the stories. They know what you gave up. They know who sat beside them in hospital rooms, who drove through bad weather to help, who stayed awake when they were in trouble, and who answered the phone when everyone else disappeared. When they dismiss you, it does not feel like ordinary rudeness. It feels like a denial of your entire history. That is why you keep trying to make them understand. Sometimes they apologize. Sometimes they improve for a week. Sometimes they tell you that you are overreacting. They may accuse you of guilt-tripping them, being dramatic, living in the past, or making everything about yourself. Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about how they treated you. It is about your tone, your timing, your memory, or your supposed inability to let things go. So you become more careful. You make your needs smaller. You ask for less. You try to sound less hurt than you are. You pretend that the birthday they forgot did not matter. You pretend the cancelled visit was no big deal. You pretend you did not notice that they spent an hour laughing with others, but checked their phone every 2 minutes while sitting with you. You make yourself easier to ignore, hoping that being easy will make you easier to love. But it rarely works that way. When people learn that they can dismiss you without consequence, many of them do not become more considerate. They become more comfortable. Your silence does not always teach them kindness. Sometimes it teaches them that your limits are negotiable. Your constant availability does not always create gratitude. Sometimes it creates expectation. Your forgiveness does not always produce respect. Sometimes it gives careless people permission to repeat what they never had to repair. This does not mean your family is evil. It does not mean they never loved you. It does not mean every missed call or rushed conversation is a betrayal. People are imperfect. Adult children have pressures you may not fully see. Relatives become distracted by their own marriages, careers, health problems, debts, and private fears. There are moments when compassion is appropriate. But compassion is not the same as self-erasure. Understanding why someone hurts you does not require you to keep volunteering for the same pain. There is a particular loneliness in realizing that your place in the family has changed. Once, people called you for every answer. You knew where everything was. You remembered every birthday. You solved problems before anyone else knew there was a problem. You were the driver, the cook, the planner, the protector, the one who stayed steady when everyone else fell apart. Then the children grew up. The house became quieter. Retirement arrived. Your daily role became less obvious. The phone rang less often. Family members began making choices without consulting you. At first, you told yourself this was healthy. They were independent. This was what you had raised them to become. But independence can slowly become distance. Distance can become carelessness. And carelessness, when left unaddressed, can begin to feel like disrespect. You may find yourself clinging to usefulness, because usefulness once guaranteed your place. You keep offering money you cannot as easily spare. You say yes to favors that exhaust you. You rearrange your schedule around people who rarely rearrange theirs around you. You cook entire meals for visits that last less than an hour. The hardest part of stopping the chase for respect is not learning what to say. It is learning what not to do afterward. You may finally speak calmly and tell your son that you will not continue a conversation where you are being insulted. You may tell your daughter that you cannot keep changing your plans every time she changes hers. You may tell a relative that you are no longer able to lend money. Then the phone goes quiet, and suddenly every old fear rises inside you. You wonder whether you were too harsh. You replay your words. You imagine them telling other family members that you have become difficult with age. You picture the next holiday without an invitation. You worry that one boundary has destroyed the relationship. Within a few hours, you may feel the urge to call back, explain again, soften the message, or offer something generous to prove that you are still loving. This is the moment when many people return to the old pattern. They set a boundary, then apologize for it. They say no, then offer a smaller yes. They ask for respect, then rush to comfort the person who felt inconvenienced by the request. They begin strong, but the fear of distance makes them undo everything. The family learns something from this. They learn that your limits are temporary. They learn that silence will frighten you. They learn that if they withdraw affection for long enough, you will return and accept the same behavior just to restore contact. This may not be a calculated plan on their part. Often, people repeat whatever has worked before. If ignoring you has always made you chase them, then ignoring you becomes part of the relationship. This is why Marcus Aurelius placed such importance on self-command. The real test is not whether you can speak a powerful sentence in one emotional moment. The test is whether you can remain steady when the consequences become uncomfortable. Anyone can declare a limit while angry. It takes discipline to keep that limit when loneliness begins to negotiate against you. After 60, loneliness can become a powerful negotiator. It knows where you are vulnerable. It speaks to you in the evening when the house is quiet. It reminds you that your circle has grown smaller. Friends may have moved away. Some have died. A spouse may be gone. Work no longer provides daily conversation. The children have their own homes, their own routines, and their own problems. When one family relationship becomes strained, it can feel as though your whole world is shrinking. So you accept disrespect not because you approve of it, but because you are afraid of emptiness. You tell yourself that a painful relationship is better than no relationship. You tolerate being interrupted because at least someone is calling. You endure being used because at least someone still needs you. You welcome people who bring chaos into your home because their presence temporarily breaks the silence. But being needed is not the same as being loved, and being contacted is not the same as being respected. A person may call you often and still treat you poorly. They may depend on you while ignoring your humanity. They may value your help without valuing your heart. They may notice immediately when you stop giving, yet fail to notice for years that you are lonely, tired, or afraid. This is one of the most painful realizations in later life. Some people miss your service before they miss your presence. When you stop babysitting, they notice. When you stop paying for dinners, they notice. When you stop solving their emergencies, they notice. When you stop giving advice, money, rides, storage space, or a place to stay, they notice. But when you quietly sit at home for 3 days without hearing from anyone, they may not notice at all. The anger is understandable, but if you live inside that sentence, it will poison the years you have left. Stoicism does not ask you to pretend that injustice is acceptable. It asks you not to surrender your entire inner life to it. Other people may have failed you. That is their burden. But if you spend each morning rehearsing their failure, you carry the burden for them. Resentment can feel like strength because it keeps the wound alive. It tells you that staying angry means you have not excused what happened. It gives you an invisible argument to return to whenever you feel forgotten. Yet resentment does not restore respect. It does not make the phone ring. It does not rewrite the past. It keeps you emotionally attached to the very people whose behavior you are trying to rise above. The mistake is not that you wanted respect. The mistake is that you tied your peace to whether they finally gave it. You may have spent years waiting for one conversation. In your imagination, your children sit down and say they now understand how much you sacrificed. A sibling admits they were unfair. A relative apologizes without excuses. Everyone finally sees the truth. The family becomes warmer, gentler, and more grateful. That day may come, but it may not. And if it does not come, you still need a life. This is where many older people become trapped. They believe letting go means saying the behavior was acceptable. They believe peace means the other person has won. They believe reducing expectations means giving up on love. But letting go is not approval. It is the decision to stop allowing a wound to run your life. You can remember what happened without reliving it every day. You can love someone and stop expecting emotional maturity from them. You can remain open to change without building your entire future around the hope that they will change. You can forgive while also remembering the pattern. Marcus Aurelius often returned to the idea of seeing things as they are, not as fear describes them, not as pride describes them, not as longing wishes them to become, as they are. This means looking at your family relationships without fantasy. Who calls only when they need something? Who listens when you speak? Who keeps promises? Who treats your boundaries as a personal attack? Who leaves you feeling calm? And who leaves you emotionally drained? Who apologizes with changed behavior? And who apologizes only to regain access? These questions are not cruel. They are clarifying. Clarity protects you from giving the same level of trust to everyone simply because you share blood. Family relationships are not all equal. Some people can be loved closely, others can be loved carefully. A few may need to be loved from a distance. That distinction may feel unnatural if you were raised to believe family always comes first. But family cannot come first at the cost of your health, your stability, and your self-respect. Loyalty without wisdom becomes self-neglect. You may have a son who calls only when his life falls apart. Each time you answer, you listen for an hour, you offer money, you calm him down. You help him create a plan. Then when the crisis passes, he disappears. Weeks later, you call just to hear his voice, and he says he is busy. The old version of you may accept this, because you are grateful he still comes to you. But look honestly at the pattern. He does not seek a relationship. He seeks relief. You have become an emergency service instead of a parent with emotional needs. This does not mean you stop loving him. It means you stop confusing rescue with connection. Or perhaps your daughter speaks to you impatiently whenever you offer an opinion. She says you are old-fashioned, negative, or unable to understand modern life. You may respond by explaining your experience, defending your intelligence, or listing all the ways you have helped her. None of that creates respect. Do not keep talking. Do not fill the silence. Do not add 10 examples from the past. Do not try to force agreement. A boundary becomes weaker when buried under explanations. You may think that if you explain enough, the other person will see your good intentions. But people who are committed to misunderstanding, you will use every additional word as new material for argument. They will debate your memory, your tone, your timing, and your motives. You may begin with one simple issue and end up defending your entire personality. This is why calm brevity is powerful. These sentences do not attack. They do not humiliate. They do not ask permission. They simply state the line. The discomfort comes when the other person reacts. They may call you selfish. They may say you have changed. They may remind you of everything they have done for you. They may bring up old mistakes. They may accuse another family member of influencing you. They may threaten to stop visiting. They may tell you that no one wants to be around you anymore. People who were comfortable with your overgiving may experience your self-respect as rejection. People who benefited from your silence may experience your honesty as aggression. People who expected unlimited access may call ordinary limits cruel. Let them have their feelings. You are not responsible for removing every discomfort your boundary creates. You are responsible for expressing yourself without cruelty and behaving in a way you can respect. Their reaction belongs to them. This does not mean becoming rigid. There is a difference between dignity and punishment. A boundary is not designed to make someone suffer. It is designed to protect what is healthy. It should not be used as a weapon, a threat, or a dramatic test of love. The goal is not to become as controlling as the people who hurt you. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself. A healthy boundary might mean you no longer answer calls late at night, unless there is a genuine emergency. It might mean visits need to be arranged in advance. It might mean you do not discuss your finances with relatives who pressure you. It might mean you leave the table when jokes become insulting. It might mean you stop sharing personal fears with someone who uses them against you. These are not dramatic actions. They are small changes in access. Access is one of the few things you still control. You cannot control whether your family understands you. You cannot control what they say about you. You cannot control whether they feel grateful. But you can control how often you participate in situations that damage your peace. Many older people resist this because they think boundaries will leave them completely alone. Yet continuing without boundaries often makes the relationship more painful and less genuine. You begin hiding your feelings. You say yes when you mean no. You smile while resentment grows. Eventually, even simple conversations feel heavy. A relationship without honesty is already lonely. Sometimes a boundary does not destroy a relationship. It reveals it. If the connection survives only when you agree to be used, it was not secure. If affection disappears the moment you stop providing money, favors, or silence, then the affection was conditional. If a person can tolerate your generosity but not your self-respect, they did not want closeness. They wanted convenience. This realization can break your heart. But it can also release you from a lifelong confusion. You may finally understand why no amount of giving ever felt like enough. The problem was not that you failed to give enough. The problem was that you were trying to satisfy an appetite with no natural limit. Each favor became the new expectation. Each rescue became the new standard. Each sacrifice disappeared from memory as soon as the next need arose. People become accustomed to what is consistently provided. The meal you once cooked as an act of love becomes an obligation. The money you once gave in an emergency becomes an assumed resource. The listening ear you offered in a crisis becomes a 24-hour service. What began as generosity slowly becomes your assigned role. Then when you stop, people may accuse you of changing. They are right. You are changing. You are learning that love without limits becomes resentment. You are learning that constant availability can damage both people. You are learning that being a good parent does not require becoming an endless source of rescue. You are learning that age does not make your needs less valid. There is also another painful truth. Sometimes older parents demand respect while refusing to examine their own behavior. Stoicism requires honesty in both directions. Age deserves consideration, but it does not place anyone above accountability. If you criticize every decision your children make, interrupt constantly, use money to control, compare siblings, or remind them of sacrifices in every disagreement, they may create distance to protect themselves. Respect cannot be built through guilt. Marcus Aurelius would not ask you only to judge their behavior. He would ask you to govern your own. Are you seeking respect? Or are you seeking authority? Are you asking for kindness? Or are you asking to be obeyed? Are you hurt because they are cruel, or because they chose a life different from the one you imagined? These questions may be uncomfortable, but they protect you from turning dignity into entitlement. There are families where both sides are waiting for the other to surrender. The parent wants an apology. The adult child wants acknowledgement. Each person holds a private list of grievances. Months pass. Holidays become tense. Grandchildren grow older. Everyone claims to want peace, but no one is willing to release the need to be completely right. In such situations, respect may begin with one honest sentence. Both parts matter. Without the first part, you may sound self-righteous. Without the second, you abandon yourself again. This is the inner shift that Stoicism asks of you. Not to control other people, but to stop handing them control over your emotional center. Your son may still be distracted. Your daughter may still cancel plans. A sibling may still make dismissive remarks. A relative may still appear only when they need something. Their habits may not change quickly, and some may never change at all. But your response can become more deliberate, more peaceful, and more dignified. You begin by accepting that respect cannot be demanded into existence. It can be requested. It can be modeled. It can be protected through boundaries. But it cannot be forced from an unwilling heart. The more you chase it, the more you risk placing yourself beneath the person whose approval you want. You begin performing for basic decency, and each performance leaves you more tired. There is freedom in deciding that you will no longer perform. That does not mean nothing will hurt. A missed birthday can still hurt. An empty chair can still hurt. Hearing that the family made plans without you can still hurt. Stoicism is not the absence of feeling. It is the refusal to let every feeling become a command. In that pause, ask yourself 3 questions. Is what I am about to do guided by dignity or panic? Am I trying to communicate, or am I trying to control the outcome? Will I respect this choice tomorrow? These questions can save you from many regrettable conversations. Suppose your adult child has ignored several calls. The old pattern might push you to send a wounded message. You may want to say that they clearly do not care, that you were always there for them, and that one day they will regret treating you this way. The pain behind those words is real, but the message will probably create defense, guilt, or temporary attention, rather than genuine closeness. You do not stare at the phone. You do not send another message an hour later. You do not punish them in your imagination. You have reached out with warmth and self-respect. The rest belongs to them. This may feel unnatural at first because your nervous system has learned to equate pursuit with love. You may believe that if you stop calling, the relationship will disappear, and perhaps it will become quieter. But a connection maintained only by your constant pursuit is already telling you something important. Let silence reveal effort. Do not create silence as a weapon. Do not ignore people to make them suffer. Simply stop doing all the work. Allow space for others to choose whether they will cross the distance. Their choice may comfort you or disappoint you, but at least it will be honest. Honesty is kinder than false closeness. Many older parents live inside relationships that look active from the outside, but feel empty within. There are regular text messages, but no meaningful conversation. There are holiday photographs, but no tenderness. There are visits, but everyone seems in a hurry. There may be public affection on social media, while private contact remains Do not confuse appearance with connection. You do not need a crowded room to feel loved. You need a few relationships where your presence is not treated as a burden. You need people who ask a question and wait for the answer. You need someone who can sit with you without looking for the first excuse to leave. These people may be family, but they may also be neighbors, old friends, members of a community, or people you have not met yet. One of the quiet tragedies of later life is that some people continue chasing unavailable family while ignoring available companionship. They spend so much emotional energy waiting for a child to call that they reject invitations from others. They compare every friendship to the family bond they wish they had. They stay home, guarding the phone while life continues beyond the window. Your family matters, but your life must not become a waiting room. There may be a church group, a library gathering, a walking club, a volunteer program, a class, or a neighbor who would welcome your company. There may be someone else sitting in a quiet house, also waiting for the world to remember them. Friendship in later years may not arrive dramatically. It may begin with the same person sitting near you each week. It may begin with a cup of coffee after an appointment or a short conversation by the mailbox. Do not dismiss these small openings because they do not carry the title of family. Respect sometimes enters your life through people who owe you nothing and still choose kindness. The work is not only outward, you must also rebuild a respectful relationship with yourself. For years, you may have measured your value through service. You were proud of being the one everyone could depend on. You solved problems, held families together, and put your own needs last. When that role became smaller, you may have felt as though you became smaller too. But you are more than the labor you provided. You are not valuable only when you are cooking, lending, fixing, driving, advising, or rescuing. You do not need to earn every peaceful hour by making yourself useful to someone else. Rest is not laziness after a lifetime of responsibility. Quiet is not failure. Receiving care is not weakness. This can be difficult to believe if your entire identity was built around giving. You may feel guilty spending money on yourself. You may hesitate to take a trip, replace an old chair, join a class, or enjoy a meal without first asking whether a child might need the money later. You may continue saving every resource for emergencies that are not yours. You may deny yourself simple comfort while repeatedly supporting adults who have not learned to manage their own lives. Generosity is honorable. Self-neglect is not. A Stoic approach does not tell you to close your hand. It tells you to give from judgment, not fear. Help when the help is wise. Give what you can afford to lose. Do not give because you are terrified that saying no will make someone leave. Do not turn financial assistance into the price of belonging. Resentment is often a sign that a yes should have been a no. Your resources are part of your stability. Protecting them is not selfish, especially when medical costs, housing needs, and future uncertainty are real. You have the right to avoid becoming financially vulnerable because another adult refuses to accept limits. The same is true of your time. You do not need to make your life look busy enough to justify protecting it. This is one of the most important changes after 60. You stop defending your right to exist on your own terms. You stop asking whether your needs are impressive enough to matter. You begin treating your peace as a legitimate responsibility. Each small act teaches you that you can protect yourself without becoming bitter. Bitterness is a real danger. Once you stop overgiving, you may feel years of anger rise to the surface. You may remember every insult and want to correct the balance. You may be tempted to make people feel the loss of everything you once provided. Be careful here. A boundary is not revenge. Peace cannot grow from a desire to punish. You do not reduce contact so they will suffer. You reduce contact because the current pattern is unhealthy. You do not stop lending money so they will learn how much they need you. You stop because their dependence is damaging both of you. You do not leave the gathering to make everyone guilty. You leave because you refuse to remain where contempt is normal. Your reason matters. When your actions are guided by revenge, you remain emotionally chained to the people who hurt you. You are still arranging your life around their reaction. But when your actions are guided by self-respect, their reaction becomes secondary. They may notice, they may not. They may apologize. They may become angrier. They may tell the family that you have changed. They may say age has made you stubborn. They may accuse you of creating distance. You do not need to conduct a campaign to correct every story. People who know your character will observe over time. People committed to believing the worst may not be persuaded by any explanation. Let your consistency speak. Be courteous. Be clear. Keep your word. Avoid gossip. Do not recruit relatives to take sides. Do not turn grandchildren into messengers. Family conflict becomes more destructive when everyone is forced into a courtroom. There may also come a time for a direct conversation. Choose the moment carefully. Do not begin during a holiday in front of other people, or when emotions are already high. Speak about the present pattern rather than delivering a history of every wrong. Then allow the other person to respond. Do not interrupt. Do not prepare your next defense while they speak. Listen for whether there is any willingness to understand. They may reveal pain you did not know existed. They may describe ways you hurt them. You do not have to agree with every detail to recognize that their experience matters. Real respect is mutual. You are not asking to become the unquestioned ruler of the family. You are asking for a relationship between adults. That requires you to release control over their choices while they release contempt for your humanity. Perhaps you made mistakes. Every parent did. You may have been too strict, too critical, too absent, too anxious, or too involved. You may have used guilt because you did not know another way to express fear. You may have expected gratitude instead of building understanding. You can acknowledge this without collapsing into shame. Then change the behavior. Do not apologize simply to regain access. Do not confess to things you do not believe just to end the silence. False peace will not last. Honesty is slower, but it has a chance to heal. Even after a sincere conversation, the relationship may remain limited. Some wounds are deep. Some family members may need more distance than you want. Respecting their boundary is part of your dignity too. The fear behind that sentence is understandable, but fear is not a good foundation for closeness. Love created by guilt does not feel safe. Let people come because they choose connection, not because they are frightened of future regret. You can express that the relationship matters without using mortality as a weapon. Your later years are precious, but that does not mean every relationship can be repaired on your preferred schedule. Acceptance may mean carrying an unfinished story. Not every conflict receives a final conversation. Not every apology arrives. Not every family becomes close again. Some people die with misunderstandings still present. This is part of the sadness of being human. Peace does not require every chapter to close perfectly. It requires you to know that you acted with as much courage, honesty, and restraint as you could. It requires you to stop poisoning the present because the past remained unresolved. It requires you to release the fantasy that one perfect conversation will make every year of pain disappear. You may never receive the respect you hoped for from certain people, but you can still live respectably. You can keep your home peaceful. You can care for your body. You can speak kindly without making yourself small. You can build routines that give shape to your days. You can stop treating every quiet morning as evidence that no one cares. A quiet morning can become something else. It can be coffee near a window. It can be music you once loved. It can be a slow walk without needing to answer anyone. It can be calling one person who speaks to you with warmth. It can be reading, writing, gardening, praying, learning, or simply watching the light move across the room. Your life does not need to be dramatic to be meaningful. Older age often removes the roles that once told you who you were. Work ends. Children leave. A spouse may die. The body changes. The world moves faster and asks less often for your opinion. This can feel like disappearance, but perhaps it is also an invitation. You are still becoming. Age does not end character. In some ways, it reveals it. When praise becomes rare and usefulness decreases, you discover whether your identity was built on external approval or inner principle. Marcus Aurelius would remind you that no one can make you contemptible without your cooperation. They can speak disrespectfully. They can exclude you. They can misunderstand you, but they cannot force you to become cruel, desperate, manipulative, or small. Your character remains yours. This does not mean tolerating harm. It means protecting yourself without becoming the behavior you despise. You do not answer contempt with contempt. You do not answer neglect by humiliating people publicly. You do not use money, inheritance, illness, or grandchildren to regain control. You choose clean actions. You speak once. You mean what you say. You leave when necessary. You forgive when possible. You remember the lesson. You continue living. There may be a day when the person who dismissed you returns. Perhaps they have grown older themselves. Perhaps life humbled them. Perhaps they finally understand what it feels like to be ignored, used, or taken for granted. They may offer an apology. You are allowed to receive it slowly. An apology without changed behavior is only a pause. Do not become cynical, but do not abandon wisdom. Let people demonstrate their intentions. Open the door gradually. You do not have to hand them the key on the first day. And if no apology comes, let your peace continue anyway. You know when you were dismissed. You know when you gave too much. You know when you stayed silent out of fear. You also know when you caused harm. Hold all of it honestly, without turning your life into a trial. You are not required to spend your remaining years either accusing others or accusing yourself. There is another path. Learn, correct, release, and move forward. The family may never become what you dreamed it would be. The holidays may remain imperfect. Some calls may remain brief. Some chairs may stay empty. There is no honest wisdom that can promise otherwise. But your heart does not have to remain on its knees. Stand inwardly. Let your voice become calmer. Let your no become clearer. Let your yes become more sincere. Let your love become free of begging. Let your generosity become free of fear. Let your distance, when needed, remain free of hatred. You do not need everyone to approve of this change. At first, even you may not approve of it. You may confuse peace with selfishness because chaos was familiar. You may confuse a boundary with abandonment because self-sacrifice was your language of love. Give yourself time. The guilt will pass when your actions are honest. The fear will soften when you see that you can survive silence. The loneliness will become less powerful when you begin building a life rather than waiting for one. And the people capable of respecting you may begin responding differently when they realize you are no longer negotiating your dignity. Some relationships may improve. Others may fade. Both outcomes provide truth. Do not measure success by how many people stay. That is self-respect. It is not loud. It does not threaten. It does not announce itself with dramatic speeches. It is present in the way you carry your body, protect your time, choose your words, and refuse to chase affection that arrives only when you are useful. You may prefer closeness, but you no longer need to purchase it with humiliation. You may desire love, but you no longer call dependence love. You may hope for respect, but you no longer beg for it. This does not close your heart. It finally places your heart in responsible hands, your own. So the next time a conversation becomes dismissive, do not rush to prove your worth. Breathe. Slow down. Remember that you are not standing before a judge. You do not need to win the argument. You need to protect your character. Say what is necessary. Leave what is harmful. Release what you cannot control. Then return to your life. Make the coffee. Open the curtains. Take the walk. Call the friend who is glad to hear from you. Keep the appointment. Read the book. Sit in the sunlight. Let the day belong to more than your disappointment. Your remaining years deserve more than endless analysis of why someone failed to value you. They deserve presence. They deserve honesty. They deserve peace that is not perfect, but real. And if this kind of quiet wisdom speaks to where you are in life, you are welcome to subscribe and continue with us. Not for noise, and not for empty promises, but for steady guidance through the years when dignity matters more than approval. You have given enough of your life trying to convince others that you matter. Now live like you already know.